Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you, wherever you is. I am Bibi and welcome to Nou'rish. Nou'rish is my little corner of the interweb where we are working on being physically, mentally, and spiritually wholesome, healed, and absolutely authentic and on par with our most authentic self. Now that we're through with that, just know that today I am going to tell you something that is encouraging but challenging. I'm basically today sharing with you the most raw, the most painful, and the most shameful thing that I have endured as a human being. And I am not even at a point in my life where I am through this. You know how usually when people share testimonies and then they tell you the story of something that's happened to them and how God resolved that thing and where they are now. This is a little bit different in that I am not through my storm. I am giving you a during cross-sectional view of my life. This is not the end. I am actually far from the end of this journey. But more than anything, even though I have many times started this video and just never continued to shoot it, or I just ended it abruptly in the middle, or I just don't know what to say, so I never start shooting. Regardless of how I have felt over the past few years, not even months, over the past few years about my testimony, God continues to push me to share. And I am so compelled, you know, because this is how I planned it. These were my plans. Many other plans of a man's heart, but it is God's. Yep, it's His will, it's His desires that prosper. So I wanted to go through my journey, and at the end, once I know, I'm safe, I'm good, we made it through, then I would shoot a video about it. But God's just been saying to me the entire year, just do it, baby. Shoot, I am with you, regardless of the outcome of your journey. Someone out there is sitting, needing this, because this experience I have made you go through because I knew you could handle it, but also you are within reach of others with the same issue. And you can bring me glory through your testimony. So that's exactly why right now I'm sitting on the floor like I'm so scared. And I guess maybe I should set up some house rules. In the comments, please be polite, please be kind. It's okay if there's a conflict of interests or differences in opinions, or if you feel like you've never gone through something like this, so you don't understand why I could make it such a big deal. It's okay. I 100% agree that we will always have people who differ in terms of their outlooks on life, but please be kind. I am a real person and this is my life. I legit wake up and this is me, okay? So let's just be kind. Cool. Okay, let's do it. Maybe I should tell you that I have an interview coming up. The reason why I feel partially that God is really forcing me to do this video today, not even this week, today, is because I think on Tuesday, I don't know what date Tuesday is, I'll put it in the video at the end, I have an interview with Mere Mortal, a ministry run by my friend Vanessa. Hi Van. So I was speaking about Vanessa, who has a page on Instagram called Mere Mortal. You should most definitely check her out. Vanessa challenges, I guess, the norms that have infiltrated the minds of our generation, the millennials and the Gen Zs, and how we have been impacted by society as Christians and as humans. And she basically tries to peel away the layers of harm, of trauma, of human experiences. She tries to peel away and show us that each and every single one of us, within all of this that is happening to us, at our very cause, are mere mortals. And she glorifies God through this ministry. So unique. Absolutely check her out on Instagram. We'll link her details in the description box, as well as I hope I'm able to insert her cards and stuff here. We will be discussing basically exactly this experience here, starting afresh, basically my segment, because it's actually quite a couple of speakers. Once again, check them out. But my segment has to do with going back to places of trauma, starting afresh in the public eye. I don't remember what the other thing is, grief and trauma. And so, yeah, that's what I'm doing here today. I honestly feel as though you guys are my primary audience, and because of that, and also I had always intended to share. I just didn't want to share now. But God is really, really like, I cannot emphasize how much he is pushing for this to happen now, today. Whew. And so yeah, that's exactly why we're shooting. So let's start at the beginning. So I come from a family that I think more than average Black families is academically inclined. Every single person in my family, most of us, have got at least a basic tertiary education, a diploma. That's like minimum requirements in my family for most of us. And coming from that, my mom is an academic. My mom was born from a domestic worker and a soldier. My grandfather fought in the 1930s for South Africa in the black arm of our army. He fought in Egypt, he was in Burundi. There's another place I'm forgetting. There's 3 places he fought in Africa. And he basically came back after fighting the wars, married my grandmother, and they had 4 girls. And unfortunately 2 passed away in infancy, and my mom and her older sister, both, my grandmother made sure of it that they were able to get tertiary education. And once in tertiary, they both furthered themselves. So my mom's older sister was a principal. And I'm talking to you about the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. Not in the 90s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, during a time when it was very difficult for Black people to get educated, for Black women to rise to positions of power. But my mom's older sister became a principal for a primary school in the village where we are from. And my mom left the village to go to the city, where she got her teacher's education. She became a very successful teacher in mathematics, technical drawing, carpentry. She did very well for herself, but her true passion was psychology. And so after I was born, then she continued to pursue her first love academically. And she studied and became a psychologist and has practiced for years and years and years, probably like 20 years right now. And I owe my very strong resilience academically to her, because I was raised in a home where we read books. I have been a lover of books as well my entire life. I think I am naturally not academically inclined, but literature inclined. I absolutely love losing myself in a book. I'm not a big fan of Netflix, Showmax. I love reality TV, I think, and by reality TV, not just like anything, but like competition, like Survivor, The Cube. Yeah, those kind of shows. Those are my shows. Yeah, and I love books. This is a mini bookcase from the actual, you guys have seen the big bookcase I have, and this is books that couldn't fit in the big bookcase. Anyway, so I love reading, and that has been a part of my identity my entire existence. I am a bookworm. I once got an award in primary school for reading the most books in a series called Goosebumps. I think the series had about 300 books. I got to 210 because that's how many the library had. And that was in 2 years. So I am a reader. And then there was Sweet Valley. Like, I am a reader, basically. And so maybe something else that I should mention is that from the time when I knew what work and careers were, and that people grow up, and I had a conception of there is going to be a time where I'm going to choose what to do. From that moment, I knew that I wanted to be in healthcare. I knew that I absolutely had a love for biology, and my aunt, my mom's younger sister, is a nurse. She doesn't practice as a nurse in a hospital, but that's what she's trained to do. And so I grew up around her and my mom and other family members, and I would look at what they do, and from there I could gauge that I'm really, psychology, okay, interesting, academics, education, okay, I see, I don't want to be a teacher though, police, so I definitely knew that my passion, or even as a 3-year-old, 4-year-old, I definitely, it was decided in my mind, I want to be in healthcare, right? But I only knew of nurses, so I was like, I want to be a nurse, okay? And my mother, did she not? I remember we were on a taxi, traveling from my grandmother's house to where my mom lived in the city. And she asked me in front of all these people in a taxi what I wanted to be. And I was like, girl, you know, I'm going to be a nurse. I'm going to be in healthcare. I'm going to help sick people. And my mother shouted at me in that moment. Like, she just burst in that taxi and basically just said, I can't do that. I think the day before I had said policewoman or something. It was a conversation she had very frequently with me. Interrogated my interest, interrogated where I needed to develop. This ultimately decided what kind of extracurriculars she got me into. But point is, she was unhappy that I had settled on nurse. It was 2 things my entire life. I was like, policewoman because they get to carry guns. I was a weirdo. And then the second thing was, I want to be in healthcare and I want to be a nurse. And then she says, have you ever actually seen that there's more careers or there's more options in health? And I didn't know. I was probably 4, because I remember we were returning so that we could start school, and I started school a year younger than everybody else. I think everybody else was 6, I was 5. Actually, I'm lying. I started school at, it's complicated, but at 4, I was already in a formal classroom, but I was only registered as a grade 1 learner years later. So I remember that was the trip we were making when she was asking me these questions. My mom then exposed me, literally maybe in a couple of weeks or maybe it was months, I don't remember. But that year, I know for a fact that I actually met a scientist, I met a doctor, and I was like, oh my God, oh my word. Because I wasn't a very sickly child, to be honest. So, not even to be honest, I wasn't a sickly child. I didn't get my vaccines past 1. I don't have any allergies. So we had never actually visited hospitals and whatnot. My family's relatively healthy. I mean, yeah, I knew that my aunt was a nurse. That's how I knew about healthcare, but I hadn't been in the healthcare system. Cognitively, at an age where I could actually remember and note what was happening, I hadn't. So when I met all these other, when my mind was open to all the other opportunities that there was, I was like, I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to be a doctor. That's what I'm going to be. That's what I'm good at. That's where I'm going. And this is a 4-year-old. Now, my mother hearing this, like any black parent, oh, she's overjoyed and she's elated. She doesn't have to worry about me carrying guns anymore. And ultimately, that stayed that way. Whenever anybody would ask me in conversation what I want to be, that was it for the rest of my life. It never changed, even in my adulthood. So I went through, academically, I was a capable child. I don't think I gave it my best until in the beginning of, it doesn't really matter. The point is, I was an academically strong child, and then I slacked somewhere in the middle of schooling. I don't know, I was complacent with books. I was reading a lot, but I wasn't studying and exerting myself in my academics. I was getting distinctions here and there, but it was really not a consistent thing. I really started getting serious with my academics, as in I want to do the best that I possibly can later on. And when I got serious, my marks went skyrocketed, right? And then came my grade 11 year, the year that decided, you know, where I'm going, the marks at the end of the year, basically. And I worked really hard throughout the year. I got phenomenal marks at the end of the year. I applied with those marks to universities. And I should mention that year, my grade 11 year, we toured almost every single university in the country that offers medicine. I did it with my school, which offered a little bit of a trip through South Africa, all the way from where we are from, Mafikeng, to Cape Town. We toured as many universities as we can, and the ones that we didn't cover, I did with my mom. Privilege. That was a privilege, and ultimately I was exposed, and I got a feel for the campuses. I got to speak to different students. I even spoke to people who went to my school, who went to school earlier than me, you know, and basically get a feel for what university life is and which campus resonates with me. From the get-go, from the moment I arrived on Wits campus, I knew I'm a Witsie. I knew it. And I think it's architecture more than it was, you know, the feeling of the students and that view from the Great Hall when you look and there's like the water feature and the field and then the amphitheater. It was more than that. I literally walked on the campus, and I wasn't even a Christian at this point, but I walked on the campus and I felt purpose. I felt decided direction. I cannot explain it. It just felt like home. And so I was like, from the get-go, I was like, I think I like this. We went to UCT, we went to CPUT, we went to UWC, we went to Stellenbosch, we went to UKZN, we went to UP, we went to UJ, we went to the Northwest, everywhere. I think only Walter Sisulu was left out because at that point it was still a new university and they didn't have medicine. So I knew I was a Witsie. So anyway, time passes, a year goes by, I forget completely. I apply for universities at the end. No, I applied for universities the following year. So in my matric year, I think I did really, really well. Not really, really well, to be honest. I am typically a B student, right? So academically, I would say I fall under, if you were to like look at my entire existence, I am probably a B student in terms of, I'm not average, but I'm definitely above average. I always have distinctions in certain subjects, and my average as a whole is always over 70. But I'm not somebody who's in the 90s. I've never been that person. However, my identity as a human being is academically inclined. It's who I've always been, even though I might not be, you know, the cream of the crop, as I've learned people are called. So I'm a B student. I think it's pretty fair to say. And when I got to matric, I applied only to 3 universities, UCT, Wits, and UP. And I applied for 1 course. I did not put second choices down. I was not interested. I put medicine on all of my applications. I was like, I'm doing this. And I sent my applications. And can I tell you that I applied the day before applications closed? Please ask me why when I had the prospectus, when I had the forms the year before. But I applied for universities, and all of them, I think I got provisional acceptance from UP and from Wits. UCT, I don't remember if they rejected me, or I don't remember, to be honest. I think they might have given me provisional acceptance and then rejected me later. I don't remember. But basically, UP and Wits was where I had hope as a matriculant that they will accept me for medicine. The year continued and I was doing okay. And by okay, I mean I was a B student throughout the year. And then the end of the year came and there was this one subject, engineering, graphics and design, that I had been getting A's in the entire year. The entire year I was combing engineering, graphics and design. And then end of year exam comes, matric exams, and I got I think over 50, but under 60. Or was it over 60, under 50? I'm not sure, but that was my lowest mark. And I was crushed. I was crushed because I knew that the people that I'm competing for to get into medicine are A students, right? Already, by virtue of being a B student, I am at a disadvantage in terms of selection processes. Yes, I'm the child who has 10 extracurricular activities, leadership positions, and academically I'm a B. And I was volunteering a lot, but it didn't cancel out the fact that first and foremost in medicine, they can say whatever they want, but marks come first. You must first meet the requirements of being academically inclined before they can say, okay, she's also a really good public speaker, or she's actually really good at gymnastics, or she's a head girl, or whatever qualities you have. So I had these letters from these universities, and basically I had to wait until only at the end of the year, once my exams were written, to get a final offer, right? And so I waited and waited and waited. My results came out and I waited and waited and waited and waited until a point where I was like, no. It's almost registration time. These people haven't responded. I'm going to call them. I called UP. They were like, waiting list. Selection, waiting list. The course is full, but we put you on a waiting list. They didn't send a letter back. They didn't send an email back. And then I called Wits, and Wits was like, girl, you were accepted. We sent you a letter a week ago. So as soon as my results came out, Wits sent me an offer. But unfortunately, I live at the edge of South Africa where I don't even know what to say. But the letter didn't get there in time. And so I was under the impression that I hadn't gotten an offer. Meanwhile, God. Anyway, I register, I start my first year. My first year was the most amazing year of my life. It was phenomenal. Not so much, being away from home. I know a lot of people might think that's what I meant. No, I made amazing friends. We had great time. There were so many adventures, there was so much exploring, there was so much growth. That's the year I think I really tapped into exploring religion and belief systems, and I went around in different systems of faith and explored them. That for me was an amazing year, and I think it's the first year where I could say I could hear God calling me. Academically, I was capable, but I was not excelling and I was not striving. So I was no longer a B student. I was like BC, somewhere in between. But of all my subjects, there was just this one course, physics by Dr. Mochachi. And funny enough, physics is my favorite subject. I don't think it's one of my highest. I think it's not one of my highest academically if I look at my matric results, but it was always one of my favorite subjects. I don't want to say it comes easy to me, but I'm naturally good at it. Like, I do put effort and I do work hard. I flunked physics in my first year, passed everything else. And the way medical school works is, the way Wits works, maybe that's what I should say. Medical school even more, but the way it works is they put the fear of failure in you. I don't know what it is. It's probably maintaining this reputation of excellence. No? They're maintaining a reputation, let me just say that, of excellence. And because of that, they will not compromise on their numbers. So you need to pass in order to excel here. Stellenbosch is a little bit different, but we'll get to that. Long story short, I failed my physics in my first year. I continued to repeat physics and take on another second year subject so that I'm not just doing one course the whole year. And I got help. I got a tutor, I got a private tutor, I got a school tutor, I did past papers, I studied. We slept in the library. Guys, me and my friend Mangops, we used to literally live in the library. We weren't party animals. That was magic. I think the most insane things we would do is walk in the streets of Bram in the middle of the night, at 2 a.m. just singing. I don't know. We were weird. So academics was our forte. So we we overly invested in study time and in organizing everything around exams, and we literally, there is nothing that we didn't do academically to make sure that we passed. And I was able to repeat physics for a semester. I wrote my semester exam, and funny enough, okay, let me say this. When I'm sitting there with my tutor and we're doing practice questions or tutorials, I'm able to answer correctly. I'm able to reason why that's the correct answer. I'm able to regurgitate laws and principles. But when I get to hole 29, the infamous hole 29, for a reason, I go blank. Like, there's nothing there. It's just, yeah. So I didn't do well the second time I repeated physics, and I was called in to meet the dean. In my innocence, right, I'm thinking this is just one of those, update meetings where they check up on you and they make sure that you're doing okay. But I was wondering why it was with the dean, because I'd met with many, many people, but it had never been the dean. So I met the dean at the time and he sat me down. It seemed like such a casual meeting until I saw the line outside his office. There were like 20 students. And they told me that this is academic exclusion, minimum requirements not met to continue. I was doing a full year's course, right? And I had failed my June exam. And I'm thinking, okay, I still have the next semester to make up for my June exam. So I'm walking in there with that mentality, and when I get there, he has this roster with my details, my marks, my extracurricular activities at school, everything. And he basically has highlighted the year. And he asked me what I see. I told him exactly what I see. Okay, I'm not academically progressing as I would have liked, but I'm gonna make up for it. I'm gonna do my best. I have never failed at anything in my entire life. And so, this is no biggie. I'm gonna get this. And then he, basically says that medicine is not for you. We are sorry, but we cannot let you continue, and it would be best if you voluntarily leave, because if you get kicked out, then you can never come back again. In that moment, to be honest with you, I didn't really understand what was happening. I knew, in theory, that this guy is basically saying I'm being academically excluded. But my mind is like, no, he's saying, no, that's not what he's saying. He's saying, I was in denial. Yeah, I think I was in denial. So we went through that conversation and it did not go very well. And I typically, because I had never failed, I really didn't know how to handle and interpret the situation. And in my mind, I'm thinking, we still have half the year to go. Let me continue. Like, you lose nothing by letting me continue. But he's like, no, we can't. I'm sorry. So I go home, I call my mom, and immediately, the way our minds work, literally, almost instantly, we're like, we've got to go and apply at other universities before the closing dates come for medicine. So at that point, I think it was August. Yeah. And there are 2 universities whose closing dates were in September instead of June, like all the other universities. Medicine closes very early, 30th of June. But there were 2 universities. I remember one was medstudent. I don't remember what the other one was. Probably UKZN. They close 30th of September. So my mom's like, we need to get on these applications. We need to hand them in ourselves. We need to move you out. We need to pivot. Basically, life went like this. Overnight, no warning whatsoever. I went home. I ended up going to medstudent. I got accepted for medicine the following year. So I was home for like 3 months. When I got to medstudent, in my innocence, I took my Wits transcript, okay, and it literally still had the exclusion details on it. And I got to, the way registration happened there was, it was this really huge hall. There were multiple tables on both sides. You went from table to table to register, get your course pack, whatnot. Yeah. So I went there, and at the point where I'm registering, there was no issues. At the point where I'm supposed to collect documents, there was no issues. At the point where my documents are verified, there was no issues. When I got to the last table, right, where I'm supposed to receive my things, the lady who's there, I asked her, is there any way I could talk to somebody about getting credits? She says, you've been in university before? I was like, yeah, no, I've been in university, and I passed my first year medicine at another university. Oh, okay. Give me the transcript. She looks at my transcript, looks at me, looks at my transcript. She goes away. She's like, okay, give me a minute. I'll be back now. She goes away and she gets the dean. They weren't called the dean. I don't know if they called the rector. It was somebody else who is the equivalent of our professor. I don't want to say his name, but the dean I spoke to, it is the equivalent at SMU. And then this guy comes and he asks me and 3 others. So there were 3 of my colleagues who I actually studied first year with who were also there. And he sits us down one by one and basically explains that if you've been excluded anywhere in the country for medicine, you cannot apply for medicine at another university for 5 years. 5 years. Okay. My family is waiting outside. They're waiting to hear that I'm back in medicine. They're waiting to hear that we've gotten over this hurdle. And here I come outside holding my transcript in shock, telling them that it's not going to work out. So we go home and back to the drawing board. Also, university applications have closed. And so I think just to be on the safe side, we had applied to other universities for science degrees. Cool. We get home, we look through, the acceptance letters, there's quite a few, and we ended up choosing Stellenbosch for a BSc in human life sciences.
I licked my wounds for a month or 2, and then I went to school. I did my undergrad. I got a 79 in physics. So my journey at Stellenbosch was pretty much smooth sailing. I mean, it was difficult, but I didn't have academic struggles per se. I did very well. And even though I think I have some trauma from my postgraduate studies, but it wasn't academic. Anyway. So fast forward to me being a post-work, not PhD, post-masters, now married, now a housewife person. I had always known that I was going to go back to medicine. I had always known. I applied after I finished my undergraduate. I applied in the first year of my undergraduate. I think that was the last time I applied. And then when I finished my master's, I was like, I'm going to give myself a year from everything. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to reapply and go back to Wits and find a way to get in. And remember, throughout this is 10 years long. I have never ever talked about it. I have never seen a psychologist for it. It exists in my mind, and if somebody was to ask me, where did you study? I don't mind saying, oh no, I went to Wits, I got excluded, I have no issues, but I'm not bringing it up. In and of myself, I'm not going to volunteer this information. You've got to inquire for it to be made available. And so that was 10 years worth of silence, 10 years worth of build up. And everything else, like in terms of academics, everything else was not as much of a struggle than the one thing that I really wanted. And it's difficult to be a medical student, but not in medicine. So I worked in a hospital. I would always see patients. I would always have, my studies included me having families that I worked with closely on their health conditions. But I wasn't their doctor. And that killed me inside. It was like being close to the dream, but so far. I always had to consult, always had to get permission from my neurologist. It wasn't the same. So I always knew. There was never ever a time in my life where I thought I was going to be a scientist permanently. I always thought I'm going to be a research doctor, not a researcher. So in my mind, I had come to the conclusion that this is just the research portion of my journey, because I did always want to be a researcher. And then I thought, okay, but now I need to merge the clinical medicine portion of it with my research so that I can write in the capacity of a doctor with the understanding of a scientist. You dig? And so I never stopped wanting to do medicine, and so I applied. I left school, I finished my master's, I left work, I became a housewife, and I had always, even from the onset of the courtship, I had always spoken about the break that I'm going to take at a certain time, and how long that break was going to be and what I was going to be doing in that break. So we were both aware that I wanted to go back to school. Cool. Come the time when now I have my year off. It's 2020. I'm trying to study, but also trying to balance trauma from postgraduate studies, trying to balance being a housewife, a new wife, trying to balance family. It's a new situation. Everything is changing so quickly. And ultimately, it got to the point where I must now contact Wits about my intentions to come back. So I got a consultant at Wits, spoke to her, then spoke to the person who's in charge of exclusions, and got advice on what to do. The process was basically I needed to enter as a graduate, no longer so I can't come back and redo physics or get credited because I had cummed physics at Stellenbosch, pure physics, not biophysics. Wits, it was biophysics, pure physics, I cummed. I don't know. Till today, I cannot tell you how in the world this happened to me. But I was no longer going to be accepted as an undergraduate student. I was going to be accepted as a postgraduate student. But before I'm accepted, I have to jump through the hoops. The hoops are, I needed to file my appeal, and then I needed to write a letter to support my appeal with my CV, all of my qualifications and what I've done in 10 years. And then I needed to write an entry exam that had 2 years worth of work, okay? And then after writing the entry exam, I needed to pass it and pass well. And then I needed to do an interview with the Committee of Appeals, basically convincing them to give me another chance. So that was my experience. I went into the process with full trust and full knowledge that I truly do believe this is where I'm supposed to be, and this is what God has put on my heart so strongly. And this is where I feel the most authentic version of myself. It's when I'm doing what I love most. I'm not an office person. I'm not a full scientist. I don't quite enjoy the environment. Academia in terms of being a scientist, being a professor, yeah, it would be nice, but that's not where I want to be. And so I worked really hard throughout 2020, really, really hard to ace the exam, to do an amazing job at the interview, to make sure that my CV and my references were up to date, literally just pushed and put all of me. I cannot emphasize how much I put all of me in that process, not knowing what was going to happen. Remember, at the end of the year, I would be unemployed if it doesn't work out. Cool. Praise God, honestly, a week after the exam, the entry exam, I got my results back. I did an interview, I did the letter, and I got, a week later after the exam, I literally got an email welcoming me and offering me a place back. Praise God. Ooh, guys, ooh. I cannot even in my mind take you back to that moment. It was 10 years worth of pent up sadness and loss and grief that had never been dealt with, and I just broke down. I broke down. Come December, I get divorced, and I'm now trying to figure out my life. My mom is supporting my baby sister, and financially we're not at a point where she can also take me to school. Problems of the missing middle class. So I had to figure out how to fund my education for the year. I had to figure out how to fund rent. I had to figure out where I was going to live. It was just beautiful in that I was given a second chance, but it was difficult. It was hard. And I hadn't realized that I had issues that I had not dealt with for 10 years that were going to come back to bite me. So I came back, started school, thought in my mind, I am a postgraduate student. I am in my 30s now. I'm going to kill this degree. That's the attitude I came in with. Hey. At the end of the first week, my laptop had died. I wasn't able to send my other funding applications. Things had just gone wrong. I hadn't found a place to stay. I was like, I didn't know how I was going to get to a point where I was living at school. Like, it was just a mess. School was online for that first week. Whew. That first week was something. I found myself laying on the floor of my bedroom at home in the fetal position because I felt crushed. I cannot explain. My mind was not functioning and I was not okay, but I didn't know that I was not okay. I just felt overwhelmed by everything, and I wanted to stop time. Like, time just needed to stop so I could figure out what was happening. Not realizing at the time that I was going through a depressive phase because I'd never had mental health issues, so I could not identify what was happening to me. My mom, in that 3-month process, a lot had happened. The divorce had happened. I had moved home. I had gotten an offer, not gotten an offer. I knew I had an offer. I was trying to plan around the offer. My laptop had died. I couldn't record YouTube videos. Like, there was so much happening. Then my mother gets COVID. I have to leave school to take care of her. I moved to a new place. Like, I'm by myself. I was crashing. And I wrote my first block exams for the year and I failed. Now, upon accepting you back after academic exclusion, Wits gives you a contract with things that you are obligated to fulfill. Otherwise, you will get kicked out again, and this time for good. This put immense pressure on me, more than I had put on myself and more than I was already going through with everything that was happening. And so it crippled, like, the fear crippled me from excelling, to be honest. I don't know how else to put it. It's almost like before I can even begin to study, I've already decided that they are just playing with me. At some point, they're going to send me an email and ask me to come and see the dean again. So what's the use of studying? That was my mental state. I was not okay. I tried my best. I could realize that the negative thoughts, as a Christian, I saw the negative thoughts, right? And I would go and I would pray and I would fast and I would talk to my mom and I would talk to my friends and I would just explain that something's not right. But none of us could identify what was happening because everybody would just say, no, you just need to have a positive attitude. No, you just need to, work harder. Like I wasn't working. Then after failing that exam, and by the way, a fail in med school is not 30 or 40. A fail in med school is under 60, right? So I failed my exam with a 56. And it's not a terrible fail if you look at it in comparison to other courses, but it is a fail in medical school. They don't care. You don't meet the requirements. And so I was terrified. Like, I would walk onto campus past the office where I was asked to leave, and I would shake. I would have literal panic attacks about going to campus because my mind was overwhelmed by the memories of past experiences, the 10-year journey getting here, and now that I was here, just this cloud of darkness that was overwhelming and consuming me. And so that's actually why I've been in therapy all these months. And my therapist and my psychiatrist, thank God for them, because as soon as I failed, I was like, no, I need to talk to someone else outside of, I need to talk to somebody objective. That's how I looked at it. And so I finally got a psychologist and a psychotherapist, and through our interactions and our sessions, they picked up that I have post-traumatic stress disorder, and it has been delayed because because of how I cope with things where I'm solution orientated. I had not accepted and dealt with that grief. And so when coming back and being put back into that exact same situation I was in 10, 11 years ago, it brought all of this up. And now I have to cope with what's happening in present day. So this is present day BB. She has to deal with what baby BB went through, and she has to deal with what she's going through as an adult at the same time. And on top of that, there's the future repercussions of what's happening here. So there's the fact that I have a contract with Wits, that I'm going to be assessed, that I'm going to have meetings every time I write an exam, and be told again that I'm not worthy, told again that I am insufficient for my dream. And so those problems are also weighing on current present BB. And so present BB was not coping. And so they tried to really work through my mind and help me unravel my thoughts and help me unravel my attitude and everything that had happened to me. And on top of that, I had lost my best friend from suicide. So there was a lot that I hadn't dealt with. And so I had to, And so I had to work through all of my issues with them, and I'm still working through them now. But I can tell you that there has been so much improvement in my attitude, in my sleep patterns, in my approach to academics, in how I feel when I'm on campus. And you know, when people ask you, for example, when somebody asks me about this university and this course, I'm no longer shrouded by shame and embarrassment like I was before. And I'm able to give a good objective opinion of the institution and not get emotional over it. And so that has been my journey here. It has taken prayer, it has taken therapy, it has taken vulnerability, it has taken honesty, it has taken courage to come back, it has taken funding, and just being honest and true and persevering in my journey. It still hurts. It still hurts that in this area of my life, I still feel like a failure. But I now know that this course and this portion of my identity that I've had since I was a little girl is not all-encompassing of me. If I fail at medicine, it does not mean I am worthless. And there's trauma from how the news was broken to me. There's trauma from the person who did it. There's trauma from the journey of leaving, packing up your things in a week, starting a new life, being rejected at another university. There's just so many things that have contributed to me emotionally, starting from scratch now, today. And it's been a lot. But God, I cannot emphasize this, guys. God has held my hand. He has coddled me when I was crying myself to sleep. He has provided for me beyond any of my expectations. He has led me to healing, to truth. God has revealed purpose. He has assured me of my purpose. I would not have been able to be here today, to record this, without breaking down, without the support of my Savior. And I think there are so many. I tried to look for videos about academic exclusion, and there are so many people who were able to, pick themselves up after being excluded. But I wanted to show you a very real view into someone who is still in the process. I don't yet have that degree. 3 degrees later, degree number 4 is still till today saying no. But I'm trusting God for it, and I'm doing my best. And I'm not letting medicine define me. I think there's also a lot of pressure on medical students, like I spoke about, how medicine is part of your identity. And Black families do make it a big deal that, you're a medical student. And so to have that taken away from you, it feels like you have been stripped of yourself. But we need to learn how to maintain a healthy balance as medical students. We need to learn how to not tie our value and our worth to the degree.
and how to find joy in other things, and how to find purpose in other things. And just it's really frustrating to be so good at everything else but not good at the one thing you want. But yeah, in all of this, my scars and my journey, I can tell you this. Like Jacob, who wrestled with God for his blessings, I am in that process, in the middle of the night, away from my family who I've sent forward, and at this time trying to atone for my sin, because that's what Jacob was doing. He had robbed Esau of his birthright, and now he was trying to go back and atone, but unfortunately he can't give back the birthright. And then he stayed back in this valley. Oh yes, it's going to be a teaching moment. I didn't plan this, it's just happening, so Holy Spirit lead me. And he stayed back in this valley by himself at night. And he sent his 2 camps separately to meet Esau's men, hoping that would earn him some pity on the side of his brother, for his brother to see that, okay, my brother who is a thief is also a father, is also a husband, is also, a leader, because he had employed these people to take care of his sheep. He had so many, because remember, he had multiplied Laban's flock 7 times, and his had multiplied even more than his father-in-law. Anyway, going back to what happened the night he stayed back from everybody else, almost avoiding dealing with his past traumas, dealing with his past mistakes. He stayed in this valley praying, and here God comes, or an angel of the Lord comes and speaks to him about his experiences, and they end up wrestling throughout the night. And Jacob, a man, fought the entire night till dawn with an angel, because he wanted repentance, he wanted fullness, he wanted this situation to be resolved. He didn't give up, but he fought this angel until dawn came, and the angel dislocated, by touching him, dislocated his hip. Not because the angel wasn't strong and he couldn't fight the whole night, but it was about showing persistence. It was about seeing how long Jacob would fight for what he wanted. And at the end, the angel then dislocates his shoulder and says, and then Jacob says, but even with a broken shoulder, I am not letting you go until I get my blessing. And the angel basically then says to him, Jacob, son of man, you have received your blessing. And he goes his way and leaves Jacob injured with a hip injury and a limp for his entire life. And that limp reminded Jacob not just of the fight in the middle of the night with an angel for his blessing and how he persevered physically through that challenge, but also of the blessing that he gained in terms of forgiveness, in terms of a renewed heart, a repentant heart, a acknowledgement of his flaws as a person. He stole from his brother, he ran away from his home, he deceived his dying father. Like, he wasn't the best of people, right? But he changed his ways, and from that experience it led him to that broken hip, his scar and his testimony, his pain, to show God's greatness, and a story that he told for generations afterwards. The reason why we have it is because he told generations afterwards of his fight in the valley with the angel. And so my testimony, I see, and throughout the year God has shown me, is an exact equivalent to that, where I'm still in the valley wrestling. I don't know if Esau has forgiven me yet. I don't know if I'm going to be able to go back to my father's land. I don't know if the outcome is going to be what I want, but I'm trusting God for it. And I'm wrestling daily with my mind, my mental wellness. I'm wrestling daily with the system of education, which I think medical school needs a serious reform. It is, I don't want to say it's toxic, but there are things about medical school and about Wits as a whole, and their approach to education, that instill fear, that instill just negative feelings towards education. And instead of bringing out passionate and warm and loving professionals, people who leave Wits literally are happy to leave. I wasn't exactly happy to leave Stellenbosch in terms of my experience there as a student. It was just time, okay? But I'm not overjoyed at the process of leaving. Wits has toxic things. So I'm still in the valley wrestling with my demon, wrestling with my angel, rather. And today I just wanted to share that with you so that you know the true, raw side of life. That don't ever think you're alone in your struggles. We all have struggles. And some people might never discuss them. And here on the world of YouTube and Instagram, you might never actually get to see the real side of the human life, which is actually a majority of our time. We are going through something. And I wanted to share that this is the thorn in my side, as Paul would say. It doesn't go away, it just doesn't. And I pray that the Lord heal you through your traumas, and I pray that you get help if you need to speak to someone, and I pray that you are able to persevere through your fight in the valley and not give up on your dreams, regardless of who tells you what. And so yeah, that's basically my journey and my story. I hope this didn't take too long, and again, please be kind
to every person you meet, because each of us is going through something that you have no knowledge of. So thank you, Lord, for this opportunity and this privilege, and thank you for this person watching this. And I just pray that one day I will come back and have a beautiful ending to this testimony. From my heart to yours.